Live from the heart of America, I'm Steve. You're ready to fight for you, for your freedom every day from the foxhole of freedom, giving you better analysis and insight than anyone else, shining a spotlight into the darkness, delivering truth and justice. Just when you thought hope was fading, here I am. Here are 3 big things you need to know how to start your day. Number 1, killer whales are on the hunt for people, it seems, and it's been several attacks now by the black and white hunters on sailboats. What's going on? We'll tell you about it. Number 2, MI6 and other British intelligence agencies found the entire Trump-Russia narrative to be so weak and ridiculous they refused to be involved after a certain point. We'll have that for you. And number 3, Joe Biden and his administration have found themselves on the wrong end of the debt ceiling debate. This comes after they ignored the entire conversation for almost 100 days. While Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans were putting together a plan and getting it passed through the House, Biden and his team kept saying the Republicans could never get it done. But they did. Well, now we're learning that Joe Biden and Kevin McCarthy will be getting together later today to discuss the debt ceiling for the second time in just a few days. The loose deadline to get something done is June 1st. But that isn't really a hard date because taxes keep rolling in and nothing of real significance would go unpaid for a long time. Things like Social Security, paid. Veterans benefits, paid. These things are going to get paid. Military pay, no problem. But this is typical Washington, dancing around the imaginary disaster that is always looming right around the corner. Using fear to motivate the masses has always been a great tool of the political class, but it seems to me they're using the fear-monger method a lot more today than they have in the past. When I grew up, Russia was a pretty constant boogeyman. They're always there and always our enemy. It was easy to see who was for America and who hated us. Iran came into full relief along with radical Islam in 1979. Of course, that has remained a go-to doom of the day on occasion. How easy was it to get America to agree to invading Iraq and Afghanistan after years of screaming about radical Islam, followed by the attacks on 9/11? It made the sales pitch pretty short and pretty easy. We must do this. And the whole world and the whole country jumped on board. Of course, now we know it was all based on bad intelligence, or we were just lied to and manipulated into going into that war, or both. Then along came COVID-19 and the pandemic. The fear-mongers had softened us up on that one for years, too. So when they came rolling out with seeds of death and destruction in places like Italy, we gobbled it all up, most of us, and didn't fight back hard enough or early enough when they put a match to our civil liberties. And now we find out every single day something new about how we were lied to and manipulated. Don't you feel sorry? Serious question. Don't you feel sorry for the people still wearing masks and living in fear? Maybe you don't, but come on. Those people are permanently broken. Permanently. When you have more and more people like that who are resistant to knowledge and susceptible to the fear factor, the fear-mongering, puts this country in real danger. And the fear-mongering comes faster and faster and faster. Look at the things we're getting bombarded with every single day. Rooted in fear to elicit a response from the masses. Not necessarily you or me, but from everyone overall. We're doing better in a couple of places when it comes to setting the record straight. Let's stay with COVID for just a moment more. Dr. Anthony Fauci is still working the traveling road show circuit, desperately trying to salvage his reputation in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic catastrophe. Listen to this.
I think the intensive care has improved. We very, very readily would put people on mechanical ventilation when we found out through clinical experience it might have been better just to make sure we position them properly in the prone or supine position and not necessarily intubate somebody so readily, which might have actually caused more harm than good. We learned that as we got more experience.
We learned that in the first couple of weeks, and yet they consistently pushed that whole idea. Put them on ventilators. That destroyed the lungs of these people. If you were put on a ventilator, your chance of survival was about 10% or less. 10% or less. Go back and look at the numbers now and prove me wrong. If you were put on a ventilator, it was basically a death warrant. Of course, climate change at the top of the propaganda list of masterclass fear-mongering gets pulled out to explain anything and everything just about all the time, doesn't it? Yeah. So never forget who the left are marching over the cliff in support of, because that's really what the folks on the left do. For ideology, they'll march right over the cliff. won't challenge the narrative, won't push back, won't say, wait a second, this climate change is getting completely overplayed. Who is leading the march over the cliff? People like the madman Al Gore. Listen as a reminder.
By 600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on the Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs and sucking the moisture out of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level and causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century. Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion? We would lose our capacity for self-governance.
Wow. What do you think his medication looks like? Because he certainly needs more or less. I can't quite decide. It's remarkable, by the way. The oceans are boiling and da-da-da. It's remarkable that he continues to peddle that snake oil when the truth is so easy to find. In fact, the United States, listen to this. The United States has not had an EF5 tornado in more than 10 years. Think about that. Al Gore and his climate zombies keep preaching that we have more severe weather, more frequently than ever. Oceans are boiling, da-da-da-da-da-da. And they always call it unprecedented. It is a flat-out lie. A flat-out lie. What is unprecedented is going more than a decade in America without an EF5, which is 200-mile-an-hour winds or more, rolling through somewhere. The last, and this is so easy to find, the last EF5 came May 20th, 2013, when a monster storm devoured Moore, Oklahoma. Moore, Oklahoma also got smashed by an EF5 in 1999, so I'm thinking about not buying a house there to retire. But it's been more than 10 years since that Moore, Oklahoma tornado. Hurricanes also been less frequent and less severe, despite the desperate pleas from the angels of darkness like Al Gore and his emissary, John Kerry, or a host of other erratic far-left emergency sirens that seem to be going off all the time and driving the push to end capitalism. And capitalism, that's the goal and the freedom of all the Western world in the name of saving the planet. I mean, these fearmongers rely on the idea that their minions are too lazy and too intellectually dishonest to actually use Google to look up severe storms in America, because if they did, they would find that monsters like Camille back in 1969 or EF5 tornado cluster storms of the 1950s and 1960s were far worse than anything we've experienced in a long time. Or the monster floods of the Mississippi in the 1920s and 30s. I mean, my marginal computer skills, and I can still find actual scientific facts and dates and data. You'd think those that proclaim themselves the saviors and champions of the world could figure out how to do a Google search. Now, wouldn't you? It's Google, Google. Google. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to continue this fear-mongering dissection of the bogus lines put out by these far-left radicals. I'm going to inoculate you against stupidity. Deal? Deal. We'll be right back.